Okay, let's keep going with this Violin Riser. We're going to drag audio into a sampler, set its root key, create a pitch bend, and also modify the sustain loop mode. Okay, so let's get this piece of audio, which we created in the previous video, into a sampler. Let's grab a sampler from our browser in Instruments and drag it in. Okay, now while I have clicked on the sampler track and I'm looking at sampler, I'm going to drag in this piece of audio. So now we've turned this audio clip up here essentially into its own instrument that we can play. Now I'm just actually going to copy this MIDI down to here. So the violin audio that we created in that previous video before this is now in its own instrument, ready to be further manipulated. Now what we need to do, though, before diving further into the sound design stuff, is we need to set the correct root key note. And this is a really important step because when I hit a C on my keyboard, for example, I want to be able to actually hear the note C. Right now I'm actually not hearing that, and I can prove it to you real quick. Just grab a tuner. I'm going to hit the note C, and you can see there that it's actually registering as an F. So the way we fix that, we know from the previous video that this audio up here was originally an F, so it's an F natural. So all we have to do in our sampler is set the root key to F, and now when we play a note, it will correspond to what we actually want to hear. So I'm hitting an F right now, and I'm seeing an F. I'm hitting a C right now, D, and so on. And more importantly, when it comes to this MIDI clip right here, which is one long F, we want that to actually read out as an F as well. Right? So we're good to go there. Very important parameter and sampler, the root key. So now let's create the pitch bend. Right now we have this just long flat F. That's not very interesting. So in order to have it rise in pitch, what we're going to do is double click the clip. If we haven't already, click this button if you haven't already, and then go to MIDI control and pitch bend. MIDI control and pitch bend. I'm going to click over here to create two nodes. One over here on the far left, one on the far right, and this is creating that upward slope. And it's going from 0, so an F, and rising in pitch. Let's listen to that. Right? Okay, now let's listen again, this time while watching sampler here. Okay, so there's a problem, right? It got cut off before we got to this part of our MIDI clip. So now let's move on to fixing that. The way we're going to fix that is by changing the sustain mode, or the sustain loop mode here. If we click this third option, this means that as long as a note is held, whatever is looped in the sampler will play back and forth indefinitely. So let me just move this down here. As long as I'm holding this, it's going to go back and forth. So that's what we want. That'll fix this problem that we just had. And I'll move this back here. Put it right about there, should be fine. That's the sustain loop mode. Really cool feature of sampler. Now finally, let's make this riser more dramatic. If we click this MIDI tab here at the end, and we go down to pitch bend range, we see +5. What this means is that the pitch bend range is only set to 5 steps. That means over the entirety of this clip, we're only raising the pitch by 5 steps. Sometimes that'll be fine, but for our particular case, let's get way more dramatic. Crank this to 24 steps or 2 octaves, and right away you're going to hear a difference. Way more intense of a riser, right? So we're almost there. In the next video, we're going to pimp out this patch even more with some filtering, LFOs, and audio effects. So in this video, we dragged audio into a sampler instrument, changed the root key of sampler to F, the key of our song. We created a pitch bend with a clip envelope and changed the sustain loop mode to back and forth. And we also set the pitch bend range to 2 octaves to make things a lot more dramatic.